Are Ravens fans sleeping on the Ravens pass rush, who finished second in sacks last year and just added Mike Green? Eric DeCosta thinks so. I was watching his interview on the Lounge podcast, and he spoke very highly of the Ravens pass rush unit, including guys like Adisa Isaac and David Ojabo. So we're going to dive into that. He also spoke very highly of LaJohntay Wester in his role as punt returner and receiver. So we're talking all that and more in today's episode of the Flock Rundown.
Ravens Flock. The Flock Rundown is the place to be.
Motionless brainwaves attempt to swim their way to sense, can't tame the untamed.
What's up, Ravens fans? My name is Ryan, and welcome back to another episode of the Flock Rundown. Before we get into today's topic, I did just launch the channel memberships. Totally up to you guys, totally optional. But if you did want to support the channel in other ways, I've had a few people reach out and ask me how they can support the channel, like through Venmo or Cash App or whatever. So I just started the YouTube subscription, and you get these little icons that I put in there. So it starts with Malachi Stark, since he just got to the Ravens. And then the longer you remember, the icon changes and goes all the way to Ray Lewis, the greatest of all time. Appreciate you guys as always. I appreciate you supporting this channel. Totally optional. Don't feel obligated to support the channel in any other way besides watching and liking and subscribing. That's totally cool. I'm also going to start to go live more, trying to go live at least once a week with a guest. I had Engraven on a couple weeks ago. I had Hendo on the week before that. I've had Coach on. So I just want to keep bringing other Ravens content creators or whoever wants to go live. I'll probably end up starting to do some call-ins as well with the members. So all that's in the works. But with all that out the way, let's talk a little bit about this pass rush room. So before Mike Green, a lot of us were kind of stressed about this pass rush room. We knew we needed to add to it. Kyle Van Noy is aging. He is producing at a very high level, but how long is that going to last? And then Odafe Oweh, this is his last year of his contract. He's on his fifth-year option right now, and that is not going to be a cheap extension. So we don't know what's going to happen with all that. We still don't know what's going to happen with all that. But the way Eric DeCosta was talking about this pass rush unit on the Lounge podcast today made me question my own opinion on things. Like, are we writing David Ojabo off too soon? Are we just assuming that Adisa Isaac isn't going to bring much to the table? Like, what if these guys take a huge leap? We haven't even really seen much of Adisa Isaac. What if these guys take a huge leap? This room all of a sudden becomes loaded. And the Ravens finished second in sacks in the entire NFL last year. So I feel like a lot of fans are kind of sleeping on the pass rush room. I was as well. And once we added Mike Green, I got a lot more confident. I think that is extreme juice added to this room. But let's listen to what Eric DeCosta had to say about this pass rush room in 2025.
There are some people that might say, well, you know, the Ravens don't have a true number one pass rusher. And yet, I think we finished second last year in the league in sacks. And our whole room is back. So you look at Kyle Van Noy and what he's done in 2 seasons. A great player. Plays like a Raven. Tough, smart, polished. Rushes the passer. Can do all the different things. He's a leader. Odafe, double-digit sacks last year, right? Just continues to grow every single year. Having a great offseason. Expect huge things from him. Tavius is another guy. Like, Tavius was a 4th-round pick. And he's like a real physical. He's a Raven. I mean, the way that guy plays, he fits us. You know, Ojabo has overcome injuries. Still a very, very talented player. He's so hungry right now. I expect big things from him. You know, it's right there for him. And then Adisa last year. So Adisa comes in. He's one of our higher players that we rated in the 3rd round. We get him last year. Had some soft tissue things. Had some injuries. Kind of had his first season derailed a little bit by that. But again, like Adisa, when you think about that, it's like getting an additional draft pick this year. And then you take Mike Green, you put him in the mix. We got 6 really good, intriguing football players.
He still seems high on Adisa Isaac, and I haven't seen enough at pro football level to even make an opinion. You know, I have no idea what Adisa Isaac is going to look like this season, which is kind of an exciting factor because we really do have our starting outside linebackers already. You know, we got Odafe Oweh, Kyle Van Noy, who's probably going to be in a rotation. I know he's getting older, but he's still going to be a vet presence on this team. He's still going to be producing. We also got Tavius Robinson. We're adding Mike Green to this room. We got Adisa Isaac. We got David Ojabo. We got Malik Ham for depth. You know, there's a lot of options now all of a sudden. And a lot of people were saying, well, Ojabo's on the roster bubble. And I feel like he is on the roster bubble if he doesn't have a great camp or great preseason, or if he's battling injuries again. To me, that's still a realistic possibility. But what also is a realistic possibility is that we get a pissed off, hungry David Ojabo, who uses all that talent that we've seen in flashes, has a healthy season, and takes a leap and really adds to this pass rush room. If that happens, if Adisa Isaac has a role in this team, if we get elevated production from Tavius Robinson, if Odafe Owe has his best season like I think he's going to have in a contract year, if Mike Green is who we thought he was, this room is stacked. The Ravens have an incredible pass rush unit. You know, and that's not a far stretch possibility. I know I'm over here saying a lot of ifs, right? If this happens, we know we're going to get good production out of Owe. He just had his best season last year, and he's in a contract year. I mean, I'm betting on Owe having more than 10 sacks. And then we still have all the interior rush that I'm not even mentioning really, and Nnamdi Madubuike and Travis Jones and everyone getting pressure from the inside, but I'm talking about just the edge room, just the pass rushers, just the Sam linebackers and Will linebackers. We're still kind of stacked unless David Ojabo has a bunch of injuries again and, you know, doesn't take a leap. If Adisa Isaac struggles with injuries again, or he's not the player that Eric DeCosta thinks he can be, you know, if a lot of that starts to happen, then maybe it gets a little bit thinner. If Mike Green doesn't burst on the scene like we think he is, then all of a sudden our room looks a lot like it did last year. But that room last year still was second in the NFL in sacks. And it doesn't really feel like it, but it is. Kyle Van Noy led that room with 12 and a half sacks, career year for him, first time making the Pro Bowl. I'm not expecting that much production from Van Noy. I think we got a lot of other horses in the room now, man. I don't think Van Noy is going to be our leading sack guy. I think Owe will probably fill that role. I think Owe will be the one with 12 and a half to 15 sacks. I think that is a very realistic possibility. But what if we're getting a lot of elevated production from your David Ojabos? What if Ojabo's getting 6, 7, 8 sacks? What if Mike Green's getting 6, 7, 8 sacks? All of a sudden, this pass rush unit that we've all been kind of sleeping on a little bit, that finished second in the NFL in sacks last year, what if they got better? The Ravens defense looks like it is going to be a lot better than it was last season. We already know how much we've added to the secondary. This pass rush unit, I feel like, is a strength as well. Moving on to another thing that stuck out of Eric DeCosta's lounge interview is his praise of LaJohntay Wester as a receiver and a returner. Let's hear what he had to say.
Wester, you know, is another guy. So we talked to Chris Horton and said, Chris, rank these guys. Who are the best returners? Mm-hmm. And he came back with Wester as being one of the very best. And so we watched his returns, impressive. Watched him as a receiver, looked at his production, very impressive. Mm-hmm. And I think it's when you see a guy, and I call this the Addison phenomenon. Like Jordan Addison had been at Pitt as a receiver and had like great production, like basically like I don't know how many catches, but 80 catches a year at Pitt. Right? Mm-hmm. It goes to USC. It's hard to go to a new school, right? Think about when we were freshmen in high school. Think about when we were freshmen in college, right? There's an acclimation. It's hard. Mm-hmm. He goes to USC first year and has an amazing season at USC. So when I look at Wester, I see the same kind of thing.
Right.
I see a first-year player at Colorado who goes there and has a great season. He's a talented receiver, excellent return man. I'm excited about him. We've had great success with South Florida players, and very excited about him.
So I truly think LaJohntay Wester is going to be the Ravens' starting punt returner this season and beyond. I think his explosiveness, his home run return ability is elite, honestly. I think it's incredible. I think As a receiver, he's probably going to be more of a depth receiver. You know, we definitely could put him in some packages and have some plays for him. I think we could utilize his quickness and speed. I don't think he's going to be an every down receiver for us by any means, you know, at least not this year or probably even next year. We'll see if he can develop into something like that, but he'll be active on game days. So that means he's going to be our sixth receiver probably, and then our starting punt returner or kick returner. And I think that's an asset, man. I talked many times about we need an explosive returner. You know, we signed Deontay Hardy last year for that. He had a bunch of injuries. It didn't work out. We've been rotating guys in like Tylan Wallace. Steven Sims we signed for a little bit last year. The Ravens have been trying to find an explosive returner that can change the game, and we just haven't had one of those guys. We know what the floor is. We know we got some solid returners that can kind of hold it down, but what about that guy who's a threat to take it to the house every single time? That changes games. You know, that changes the momentum. That changes field position. That changes the score. You know, I mean, you take a punt return back to the house, everything just changed in the game. So the Ravens, I think, we'll see how it plays out, but I think Wester can 100% be that guy, and it sounds like Eric DeCosta agrees as well, so that's exciting. I'm hoping that he does become an explosive punt returner for us, takes one to the house this year. I think that would be an incredible addition in the 6th round. And if you haven't checked out that Eric DeCosta interview on the Lounge, it's a pretty solid watch. It's like an hour long, so it's definitely not short. There's a lot of different topics covered in there, but a couple things stood out to me, and I just wanted to come on here and talk about it with you guys. But let me know what you're thinking about everything. Let me know what you're thinking about the pass rush unit, about LaJohntay Wester, and what he could bring to the team this year. I appreciate you guys, as always, for tuning in to another episode of the Flock Rundown. Have a beautiful rest of your day, and I'll let the greatest linebacker in the history of the game take us out.
Ravens flock. The flock rundown is the place to be. My man Ryan has been a lifelong Ravens fan since he was born. The flock rundown. Nothing gets better than waking up and wondering how high we can fly. Tune in.
Motionless brainwaves attempt to swim their way to sense, can't tame the untamed.